Hey everybody, Snowdog here. Today I'm going to be talking about the process that led to my reaction of becoming a trans parent. If we go back to 1988, it was when I learnt for the first time that I was going to become a father. And I have a gay brother, and I'd seen him come out and saw how much he worried about coming out and how much it affected him. I've also seen many other people come out, and many times it's not been as bad for the person as they thought it would be. Sometimes it's been precisely as bad, if not worse. But I thought about that with my child, that if they would ever be LGBTQ+, that I wouldn't want them to be in a situation where they felt that coming out to me would be something they would worry or feel anxious about. I wanted it to be as normal as possible if that happened. So I thought, well, being as I'm thinking of it now, I need to work it so that by the time they become an adult, it would not be an issue for them. So I thought very carefully about how I would do things. I didn't do what some people call heteronormative behaviour or stereotypes of bringing up kids. It's like, oh, if you're a boy, you've got to have cars and rockets, and if you're a girl, you've got to have dolls and pink, for example. I didn't go by any of those stereotypes, and I also remembered back to what my dad taught me as a kid, which was that you treat everybody as an individual regardless. He went on when I was older to upgrade that, unless they're an arsehole. Then you treat them like an arsehole. Good advice, I've lived by it. His father, on the other hand, was a very different case because he was off for 6, nearly 7 years he was away when my dad was a child because he was fighting in the Second World War. So for much of my dad's formative years, he didn't have a father figure. So he didn't have much to be able to bear, sort of kind of take the role model of a father and to put it forward, so he went by his own things. And as it turned out, he did a very good job, my dad did, in my opinion. In fact, the last thing I ever told him was that you've been a good father, I love you. And I'm so glad I said those words. So glad. But anyway, on the run up to my child being born, I put a lot of thought into it and thought, I'm not going to enforce the male or female traditional stereotypes. I'm going to be more open. I run other experiments as well, like not being quiet when they were asleep, and I learned from that you can be as noisy as you like and it doesn't disturb them if you do that. If you're being quiet, they wake at the slightest sound. Also, I did another experiment of not making a big deal out of food, that if they didn't eat something, it wouldn't become a fight. It'd be like, okay. And that worked very well, and my child ended up enjoying vegetables a lot. Just so happens that's the way it went. But anyway, so on this occasion, when it came to sexuality, I decided to not hide anything about sexuality, but not promote anything either. If any questions were there, I would answer them as directly as possible, but in an age-appropriate way. So I wouldn't hide things like homosexuality or trans things or anything. But if they came up, I would be very supportive of different people's sexuality. So my child was assigned male at birth. And I did exactly the things I intended to do. And I'm going to go in the terms that I used at the time just to show how things have changed. This does tie into other things, but some of them are a bit private between my daughter and myself, so I won't necessarily explain them. But everything I'm saying here is within that realm. So we will say for this stage my son, because this is relevant to how things were at that time and how she related to that time. This is not me putting that on her. There was a stage come where, I'm saying she because that's how I think of her, but anyway, came to me. Well, it didn't come to me. It was a case of we were sitting down having dinner, And it came up in conversation about being attracted to men in the same way as women. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Didn't make a big deal out of it because to me it wasn't a big deal. And then she said to me, oh, did I ever mention I'm bi? And I'm like, no. So she said, oh, I'm bi. I'm not doing it the way I said I was going to do it, am I? I said I was going to go with how it was at the time, but I can't think that way. So we're going with she. Okay, even though she was physically he at the time and identified as he at the time, but I can't fit into that, so I'm not doing it that way like I said I would, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, so she said, oh, I'm bi, and I'm like, oh, cool. And that was pretty much it. She might as well have said, oh, could you pass the jam? Except she doesn't like jam, but if she did like jam, she'd have said pass the jam, and I'd have gone, okay, it's the same difference. It didn't. We talked about it in more detail at later stages because I asked questions about being bi and that, and in conversation I learned a lot more about it than I knew at that time. But also, she said to me that she wasn't worried about coming out to me because she knew I would understand, and which was awesome. I felt, yeah, I've achieved something because I didn't want her to worry about such things. And I just realised I wasn't even looking at the camera. I was looking at my other screen. But anyway, yeah, so where I got to, brains farted. Yeah, so, yeah, the thing is I was quite proud of myself because she didn't get anxious or uptight about telling me. She wasn't worried about it or concerned in the slightest, which to me was what I wanted to achieve, and I'd achieved that. Anyway, fast forward about 10, 12 years to last year, actually, where my daughter would have been about 32 at the time, and she contacted me, I think it was in the February, and said, oh, Dad, I know that this is not an issue for you and that you're going to be totally fine with it, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be coming out to people as trans. I was one of the first people she told, so that was like really nice to have that kind of trust. And she was of course quite right that I was fine with it, and the fact that coming out as trans to me was also not an issue for her was really rewarding moment. I showed full support, which of course I have. And my main concern was how people were treating her and how she felt about it, and a few little things which I knew would quite possibly come up in the journey about like hormone treatment and that, because I know quite a few trans people, and my oldest friend who I met in September 1969 on the first day of school, she came out as trans, I think about 7-8 years ago, so I'd gone through her journey as well and seen her blossom from the person she was into the person she really is. And the change was wonderful. And I said to my daughter, I'm really looking forward to seeing you go through this process, to see you be so comfortable in yourself. And she is becoming that a year on and a bit. She's really coming into herself. And I'm so proud of her, to say the least, and love her dearly. And I make sure I tell her this. We've always been able to tell each other we love each other anyway. We've always hugged. To be honest, the way I see her hasn't really changed, because she's still the same person, if that makes sense. The only difference is she's more comfortable in who she is now. But the conversations we have not really changed that much. Apart from talking about the process of transitioning, which I'm as supportive as I can be. I guess my point is here that if we don't fit with the stereotypes of older times where it's like boys have got to be this, girls have got to be that, when it comes to it, the pressure of coming out isn't there. I mean, with my daughter, although technically it's known as coming out, it didn't feel like she had to come out to me or that she was. It was just conversation. And to be able to see that experience with somebody who hasn't struggled with coming out is wonderful. And so many people, even when they've got really supportive parents, still worry about coming out and whether they'll be accepted. And thankfully, this day and age, things are far more accepted than they were. I mean, I've known trans people going back to probably the early 80s, where it was not so common at the time and certainly not as accepted. And I've known people as gay from, I suppose, about the same time as I was in my mid-teenage years. And I've noticed that it's a lot easier to come out than it used to be and more accepted, but there are people who still are not accepting. But anything I can do to help reassure somebody coming out and to be supportive, I'll be there the best way I can. But anyway, for all of you, I hope that's helped a little in understanding a parent's view of their child coming out to them as, well, as anything really, and that to know that it can be done. I mean, I will talk about this further in future videos as well to explain more specifics of the coming out process and how reacting as a parent has been. Anyway, thanks to you all, much love, and have a great week. Bye for now.